Thanks for staying with us. You're welcome back to the morning show here on the Rice News. Well, what exactly is happening with federal government's war against terror, especially in the Northwest? Is the military giving up? Are the governors there ready to put the people's interests first and exercise the necessary political will to tame the dragon of banditry and insecurity? A lot of questions. And for answers, we now turn to our distinguished guest, Dr. Dominic Alanche, who is a public affairs analyst, development expert, and member Governing Council of Federal Polytechnic, Shandam, in Plateau State. Good morning, Doctor. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
Thank you for having me, and good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you indeed. All right, let's dive straight into it. It's all about what is happening at this point in time to the federal government's war on terror, particularly in the Northwest. I know that you are quite familiar with what has been going on in Plateau State in the North Central, but it looks like attention is back somehow to the Northwest, especially given the fact that the president has asked the Minister of State for Defense and some of the security chiefs to move to Sokoto just to ensure that order is restored. What is your understanding of what is going on? What will be your assessment of the intervention by the federal government? And where are we really in terms of this war on terror?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me this morning. I think what is happening in the northwestern Nigeria and Nigeria generally, in terms of the fight, against, banditry, kidnapping, and all of that, terrorism, and all of that, what the federal government is doing is quite commendable, in terms of the fight. As you are aware, they've taken the fight to Sokoto. The other day, the Minister of Defense, State for Defense, and the security chiefs, deployed themselves to Sokoto to ensure that, they fetch out all these bandits, criminals, elements that are terrorizing, the people in Sokoto State, and part of the Northwest. But you see, the government, no matter the effort they put in place, they cannot achieve much without the collaboration of the state governors, without the collaborations of the people from the northwestern state. So with that, you can see that there are a lot of challenges. The government is having a lot of challenges because these bandits, they are members of communities. These bandits, they come from, a community. So there is no way the government can achieve so much in terms of, nipping this, insecurity, banditry, terrorism, that have assumed a new dimension, in the northwest Nigeria without the collaboration of the state governors. And sincerely speaking, I do not see some of the state governors, collaborating with the federal government to ensure that, they secure the lives and property of the people of northwestern state. Look at what is happening in Sokoto, with the recent, discoveries or information that is, not Sokoto, Zamfara State, to say, with the recent, information that is coming out from there, an internal memo is being circulated, is trending in the social media of how about $1.3 billion, was allocated to settle, a bandit, notorious bandit, well-known bandit, from the government.
That's what we all see on social media, but nothing has been confirmed, and we know that there are deniers, at least from some of the media outlets mentioned. So maybe in discussing this matter, let's give it the benefit of the doubt that maybe since we have not heard directly from Zamfara State.
No, definitely you expect that they will come out to deny it, but they cannot deny the signatures that are on there, which emanate from the SSG of the state, Malan, Nakwada, and then the signature of approval that was appended on that same document. So it is expected that they will come out to deny it, but the truth is, the evidence speaks for itself, So I think, the government, the federal government, should look into that.
Or you saw a picture of signatures on the internet?
Well,
I want to confirm that you saw an actual document yourself, or you saw the pictures on social media.
Well, what we saw is what is trending in the social media, like I said earlier.
Okay.
And they have not come out. The fact that this have been trending for the past 2 days, and they have not come out to deny it, is an attestation that yes, the signature, it emanates from them.
Dr.
What I am saying is that there is need.
Okay.
Listen to me. What we are saying, you are talking about what effort the government is doing in nipping all of this on board.
Yes.
And I'm telling you that this cannot happen without the collaboration of state governors, in the fight against banditry in the Northwest, in the fight against kidnapping, and all of that that is happening in the Northwest. Without the collaboration, without the cooperation of the state governors, and I don't see the state governors, collaborating or cooperating with the federal government to nip this on board, because I think, the criminal activities there is advancing their interest.
Dr. Alanche, I like to come here. I think what my colleagues are trying to say is that while we do this interview, it is important to stick to the facts. We've all seen the photos, but it's not been verified yet. Until it is, we have to just make sure we're careful with how we put across this information. But you've spoken about, the ransom payments in general. First off, if you look at how effective the military's current strategy has been in countering banditry and terrorism, given the repeated attacks on both civilians and military personnel, what needs to change? And if you look at this risk that you speak about, the monetary inducements to terrorists that could embolden these groups and make them more powerful, what alternative approaches can be taken to negotiate or deal with these groups without further destabilizing the region?
Well, I think that the military need to engage in terms of, deploying technology, because there is no way we can, fight this banditry without deploying technologies. Take, for example, these guys acquire weapons. How did they get the resources that, that they get, they acquire this weapon? What is the national financial intelligence unit, NFIU? What are they doing? You understand? Because there is no way that, some of these banditry, ransoms are being paid. Where are they being paid to? Which account are this money going to? So I think there is need for them, to deploy technology in terms of monitoring, the activities, in the Northwest, in terms of, watching, the movement of finances, how monies exchange hands in the state, because without finances, they cannot be successful, in their criminal activities. So the military, the intelligence community need to deploy technology in the fight against banditry, and banditry, terrorism, kidnapping, and all of these vices, that have stampede development, that have, put the lives of the people at risk. If you go to Northwest today, you will cry, you will weep for the Northwest. It's a shadow of itself, 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Okay.
Very unfortunate. It's disheartening. It's painful.
Okay. Thank you very much. So you've spoken about the need to employ technology in order to reduce banditry, but do you also think there needs to be a continued strengthening of the local government?
Absolutely. I think there is need for strengthening of the local government, and that is why, the local government autonomy, which have been granted by the Supreme Court, as a result of the step taken by the federal government, is quite commendable, because the local government, they have a role to play. Every territory is decentralized. There are local government, and the local government, if we can truly empower them financially, like the Supreme Court have granted that autonomy, I think they have a role to play in securing their local government. And not only that, in every local government, the traditional rulers, they are also submissive, or they are subject to their their local government. There should be a constitutionally defined role for them to play in terms of, exposing these bandits and ensuring that they secure their community. So strengthening the local government by way of financial autonomy, strengthening the local government by way of, giving them, role to play in terms of securing their communities, their local government is very, very key, and it will go a long way in ensuring that, peace return to the northwestern Nigeria and Nigeria in general.
All right, Dr. Alanche. First, a piece of information, because you mentioned the office of the SSG of Zamfara State, earlier on the program. And I'd like to just inform you that he was actually on our station last night, on News Night in Abuja. He was in the studio himself. And he denied, authoring anything of the sort. So the stuff on social media that you are making reference to, the SSG, Alhaji Nawada, has said that it didn't emanate from him. So I thought that should be put in context. But I also would like you to go beyond the allegation to give us what your thoughts are when you say that some governors may not necessarily be working in tandem with the federal government. Are you zeroing that to Zamfara State alone? It is Sokoto State that President Tinubu has asked that Matawali, who was, a former governor in Zamfara, by the way, and all the service chiefs, that he has directed them to go to and ensure that order is restored. Are you talking in terms of the 7 states in the Northwest, or are there specifics? And what will be the key areas where you think that they can work better with the federal government?
Well, I'm not just referring to Zamfara State alone. We are talking of Northwest. We are talking of Nigeria. I'm talking about, the entire federation, but specifically Northwest, because in recent time, the, banditry activities, have assumed a new dimension, in the Northwest. And that is why, we are very much interested in what is happening there. Yes, like I said, there is need for collaboration. What I am saying is that there is need for more collaboration and cooperation in ensuring that, the federal government, in its fight against banditry succeed. You will agree, you will tell me that the buck ends on the tables of Mr. President. Yes, the buck ends on the table of Mr. President, but again, you know that constitutionally, the state governors are the chief security officers of their state. So what are they doing, to complement, the fight, against banditry, against terrorism, against kidnappers, that the federal government is engaging in? What are they doing? We are not seeing, Nigerians are not seeing, in terms of, a fiscal, implementation or fiscal involvement of what they are doing. All we see them doing is that whenever there are activities, they grant media interview and all of that. But in terms of, support, to the troops on ground, in terms of supporting, even bringing out information, intelligence to these security agencies to work with, I think, the state governors are not really cooperating in that angle with the federal government. And it's very important for their cooperation because, they are the chief security officers of their state, and they have sworn to protect, to secure the lives and property of the people. So we need to see them go, a step further from where, the steps they have taken to ensure that, they deliver on that, constitutional mandate that have been, bestowed on them.
Yeah, but just a quick one on that. Given the fact that a former governor of Zamfara State, Alhaji Matawali, is now the Honorable Minister of State for Defense, and is at the forefront, of those that the president has said, go and fix Northwest, make sure that everything comes back, to life there. He understands what it means for governors and states to collaborate with the federal government. Don't you think that it's high time that Nigerians began to feel the impact of the Minister of Defense, the Minister of State for Defense, in matters of anti-banditry, anti-terror in the Northwest?
Well, I can tell you that, the impact of, what the Minister of State for Defense is doing, in terms of fighting insecurity in the Northwest is being felt across the Northwestern state and Nigeria in general. I will tell you that before now, our state, for example, the North Central, our livelihood have been taken away from us. And what is our livelihood? Farming. I can tell you, my friend who is a reverend father in Niger called me the other day to say that they are very happy with the security situation because farmers have gone back to farming. So I think, the government is doing their best, but they need to do more. That is what we are saying. What they are doing may not be enough. They need to do more in terms of intelligence gathering, in terms of boot on ground, in terms of deploying technology, in terms of, fighting, this, bandits, and again, one of the things that I've not seen, them doing is prosecution. People have been arrested. Are they being prosecuted? Because you cannot, if there is nothing to serve as deterrence, people will continue, they will continue to recruit people into their folds, their criminal activities. So they need to do all of this so that, Nigerians can begin to see very practically what they are doing in ensuring that the entire country is secure.
All right, then you've touched on earlier, these are deep-rooted allegations of corruption and the seeming nexus between governance and, banditry. Now, if we look at the steps that you've mentioned that the federal government should take to address the situation in the Northwest, but if we focus on, the current administration ensuring that these security funds are strictly used for their intended purpose, especially in conflict zones where governance, where accountability, might be weak. How do we close that loophole should, in case there is that kind of situation on ground in the Northwest?
I don't quite really get your question. Can you please come again?
Okay, I'm talking about the current administration ensuring that the security funds, because you've made allegations on the show this morning about, certain parties actually, paying ransom or even sponsoring some of these banditry. So now I'm saying, how should they ensure that how should the current administration ensure that this security funds are strictly used for intended purposes, especially in conflict zones where accountability might be weak?
Well, you can see very clearly, the commitment of this government in ensuring that, they nip this, insecurity to the bud, because without security, I'm telling you that some of the renewed hope agenda, promises cannot be delivered. So the government is very intentional about it, and they are committed to it. So we trust that, there will be a mechanism to ensure that whatever funds that is allocated, for the fight against, insecurity is deployed, to that angle. But I cannot here and tell you, whether or not, that is being adhered to. It is what they do, what they are doing on ground that will show us whether or not the funds that are meant for fighting insecurity in Nigeria or in Northwest, in North Central are used as a result of the results they are getting or what they are achieving that will tell us whether or not, they are doing that. We want to see them, like I said, deploy technology. We want to see them, get, weapons, that commensurate to the fight against this insurgent. Because one of the complaints you keep hearing is that they do not have weapons, sophisticated weapons to fight some of these bandits, because these bandits have access to funds, have access to weapons, that are more sophisticated than theirs. So when we begin to see that this complaint from the boots on ground, are being met, when we begin to see that they are deploying technology that they need to do, in a way they should, then we will certainly, say that the funds that are meant for some of this, fight against insecurity are being used. But for now, I think we do not have issues with that aspect, because security funds are not something that you can probe into, but the results on ground will show whether or not they are using it or not. But so far so good. I think they are using it. It's a plus for them.
All right, Dr. Dominic Alanche, we want to thank you for your time with us this morning on The Morning Show. Thanks for the insight that you brought into the discussion.